Hello, everybody. Welcome to this event. Thank you for joining us today. I am Daniela from EURES Malta, and I will be giving you some information about living and working in Malta during this presentation. I hope that you find the content useful. At the end of this presentation, I am also going to share our contact details just in case you would like to get in contact with EURES Malta. So let's start. I'm going to start by sharing some interesting facts about Malta. So the name Malta comes from Greek, which from the Greek word merita, which means honey sweet. Malta is a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean, with just 316 kilometers squared. The population size is over 500,000, so compared to the geographic size, it's quite a lot. Our official languages are Maltese and English. Of course, you are not expected to know Maltese to work in Malta. Everybody speaks English over here, so if you speak English, even basic English, that is fine. We use the euro as our currency, and Malta joined the EU on the 1st of May 2004. As some of you might already know, maybe you came to Malta for a holiday in the past. Our average temperatures are quite warm. It is around 23 degrees during the day. And our capital city is Valletta, and Malta is a touristic destination. We welcome over 3 million tourists per year. Our religion is Roman Catholic, and over 90% of the population practices this religion. And the Maltese love religious celebrations which take place during summer. We have a lot of them. They are called festa, which means feast. We celebrate these religious celebrations during summer, especially with a lot of fireworks and partying going around in different villages. So, the Maltese culture. The culture of Malta is the result of the many different societies which came in contact with the Maltese Islands during the past years. Many people used to rule Malta in the history, and all of them left their impact on the island. The Maltese language is the only Semitic language written in Latin alphabet, and Malta is a touristic destination, as I have already mentioned, because of our warm climate. We have a lot of recreational areas and architectural and historical museums and sites. In fact, in Malta, you can find three UNESCO World Heritage Sites. These are the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, Valletta, the capital city, and one can also find seven megalithic temples in Malta, which are some of the oldest structures in the world. These are even older than the pyramids, just to give you an idea of how old these structures are. So here you can see some traditional Maltese food. Over there you have the bread. We call it diftira, which is filled with a delicious tuna mix. On the right-hand side, there is the Maltese pasties. It is a savory food filled with either pea or cheese or sometimes even chicken. And down there you can see the Maltese figolla. That is a sweet tradition which you will find very common in Malta during Easter time. Okay, so now some information about the main economic sectors in Malta. So the aviation sector, the sector has seen very strong growth over the past few years with the presence of very good quality operators in the maintenance and repair of aviation. We have very good companies operating in the aviation industry, and over the past years, the aviation industry became one of the main economic sectors in Malta. ICT and shared services, this is another very important sector for Malta. The life sciences sector, in Malta one can find a wide range of presence in the Maltese economy with well-established operators in the manufacture of pharmaceutical and medical devices. The maritime industry, of course, this one goes without saying. Malta is a small island surrounded by sea, and therefore we are ideally located in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, a few miles off one of the busiest global shipping lanes. The tourism industry, I have already mentioned this. Malta relies a lot on the tourism industry. In fact, the tourism industry contributes to about 15% of the nation's domestic product. The iGaming industry, this is a new phenomenon in Malta. Well, new, it's been going on for a couple of years now, but it has grown to become one of Malta's most important economic contributors. Today, the iGaming industry accounts for 11% of the island's GDP, and it employs more than 6,600 people. So, some important information that you should know before you make your move to Malta. Okay, so before you leave your country, it is important that you contact your local taxation department to inform them that you will be leaving and that you will be moving to Malta. This step is important so that you will close your tax account before you leave. It is also important to go to the Social Security Department and ask for the U1 document. The U1 document is a statement of all social security benefits which you have paid in your country where you are currently residing. Once you arrive in Malta, you can then submit this document to the local Social Security office in Malta so that they will know that you have already paid an amount of social security benefits in another EU country. So in case you would need to access social security benefits while you are in Malta, the contributions which you have paid in another country would be amalgamated with the ones that you have paid in Malta. Otherwise, we won't know that you have already paid contributions in another state. If you are receiving any type of benefits, for example, unemployment benefits, you can transfer these to Malta, and in this case, you would need to obtain the U2 form from the Social Security Department. It is very important, and we always advise that you speak to your local EURES advisor to find out more about what you need to do before you leave your country. It is also very important to contact us before you leave so that we will guide you accordingly before you arrive in Malta. The European Health Insurance Card, this is very important. It's important that you bring it with you and make sure that it is not expired because you will need to use this card for any emergency health services while you are in Malta before you start receiving your salary. Because once you start working, you will be eligible for the same service as all residents. But in the meantime, you would need to make use of this blue card. Recognition of qualifications. If you have a degree, diploma, whatever, if you have some kind of qualification, especially if it's not in English, it is important that you get the recognition of the qualification and its translation in English, okay? So you can go to the ENIC website. You have the link over there, and you can also contact the National Commission for Higher Education in Malta for more assistance with this step. Finding a job in Malta. So we always recommend that you manage to secure a job before you move to Malta. In Malta, we have very low rates of unemployment, and many employers are looking for staff, but this does not mean that you are going to come to Malta and find a job the next day. Okay, so it is important to secure employment before you move to Malta. EURES advisors in Malta can help you with this step, so you can send us your CV in English on eures.recruitment.jobsplus@gov.mt, and we will assist you with job matching. If, on the other hand, you prefer to look for a job in Malta by yourself, we recommend that you visit the Jobs Plus website, which is jobsplus.gov.mt, and you can create an account for free and apply for vacancies directly through the website. If you still decide to move to Malta and you do not have a job, you can register as an unemployed with Jobs Plus. Contact us for more information if you decide to go through this route. If you are a parent and you're going to come to Malta with your family, if you have a baby aged from newborn until 3 years, working parents can benefit from the government's free childcare scheme, given that the parents are working. Applying for a job in Malta. So to apply for a job, it is very important that your CV is updated. It is in English. Okay, if you need to update your CV, you can use the EURES format to update your CV or create a new one from scratch. And it is very important that your CV contains personal information, your name, surname, where you are located at the moment, email address, how the employer is going to contact you, your educational background, some information about your previous employment, and also your skills, for example, language skills, technical skills, and so on. Working in Malta. So these are the steps and some information that you need to know about working in Malta. These are the shortages that we have in Malta. As I have mentioned before, we are looking for people in all sectors in all areas in Malta, not just these. These are the top shortages in Malta. But if you are looking for a job which is not listed below, please still get in touch because we will be able to assist you with job matching. But this is just to give you an idea of the most common vacancies that we tend to have in Malta. Now, working in Malta, what you need to do once you find a job in Malta and you move to Malta. So the first step is to obtain the national insurance number. This is the social security number, and this is needed to be insured under Malta's social security system. Then the second step is that your employer registers your employment with the Public Employment Service. And then after 3 months of living in Malta, you must apply for a residence card. A residence card is granted once you start exercising a treaty right. So if you start working, that is one of the treaty rights. So you can apply for a residence card on the basis of employment. Some information about working conditions. So employment contracts in Malta can either be indefinite, which means that they do not expire, or definite contracts. For example, you receive a contract for 1, 2 years and so on. It may be renewed for further periods, or else you can find a different employment once your definite contract is up. But the most common ones are indefinite contracts. The probation period in Malta, it starts from 6 months for up to 1 year. The probation period is so for the first 6 months of employment, you will be under probation, which means that you can decide to terminate your employment without giving your employer any kind of explanation. You can decide that this job is not for you and you terminate your employment. The employer cannot employ you for a few weeks, months, and so on without pay. So you will start receiving your salary from the first day of your employment. Trial periods are not allowed in Malta. These are totally illegal, and you must start receiving your salary from day one. Our working hours are 40 hours per week plus an 8 hours additional overtime if the employer needs you to stay for an additional 8 hours per week. He can ask you to, or she can ask you to stay for longer, and if you are available to do so, you will be paid by overtime rates. Vacation leave entitlement, this varies a bit depending on how many public holiday comes during the weekend. The more public holidays that fall on the weekend, the more vacation leave we get that particular year. But as an average, we get 216 hours of paid annual leave for full-time employees. There are other types of leave, for example, birth leave, marriage leave, sick leave, and so on. The notice period. So if you are working in Malta and you found a different job and you would like to leave that particular employment to move on to another one, you need to work the notice period, which is calculated on the employee's continuous length of service. For example, if you have worked for 1 month but up to 6 months, you need to work 1 week as notice. So the minimum wage in Malta, if you are aged 18 years and over, the minimum wage is €213 and 54 cents per week. This is just the minimum wage, okay? So not all vacancies pay this type of salary. This is the minimum wage, which means that the employer cannot go below this threshold, okay? Taxes and national insurance. So it is important to note that wages in Malta are always quoted in gross. So this means that if you come across a vacancy and the salary is that of €28,000 per year, it is important to keep in mind that taxes and national insurances will be deducted from that pay. The employer will take care of this step, so you won't have to worry about paying taxes and national insurances yourself. So the national insurance is paid at 10% of your basic pay, and the tax rates varies depending on how much you earn. There's the tax rates brackets, there's a table which can guide you about the tax rates, and the more you earn, of course, the more taxation you will pay. So some information about living in Malta now. So I have already mentioned this. So if you are working in Malta, after 3 months, you need to apply for a residence card. If you have a spouse or children under the age of 21, they can accompany you in the Malta as well. After a continuous period of 5 years of working and living in Malta, you can then apply for permanent residence, given that you have not left Malta for more than 6 months. Of course, you can go on a holiday and so on, but if you leave the country and come back, you might not be eligible to apply for this. For more information, you can visit the Identity Malta website, and you can also email us if you have any queries. Accommodation. So accommodation in Malta is privately owned. The rental accommodation, for example, I own a property and I would like to rent it out to other people. You can find rental accommodation for rent on real estate agents' website. So if you go on Google and you search for accommodation in Malta or real estate agents in Malta, many websites will come up and you can ask for more information and they will be more than willing to help. Rent in Malta is normally paid in advance with 1 month rent paid as a deposit when you first move in. The price of the rental accommodation will vary depending on the area. So if you are going to look for an accommodation in the city center and in touristic areas, these of course will attract a higher rental rate. So explore the different areas in Malta. Many villages are much cheaper than the touristic areas. And for example, if you're going to look for accommodation in Valletta, it's going to be very expensive because it is the capital city. But Malta is a very small island, don't forget this. And by bus, you can reach everywhere in minutes. Okay, so it is important that you keep this in mind and you look for accommodation away from the touristic and busy areas. It is important as well to keep in mind the accommodation cost in comparison to your salary. Healthcare in Malta. So Malta has a public healthcare system as well as a private healthcare system. If you go to the public hospital, healthcare is free at the point of delivery because the social security contributions that we pay are used to support the public healthcare system. There are also many health centers around Malta, which also belong to the public healthcare system, which you can go to if you have an injury. For example, you can go to a health center instead of the big hospital. So it is very important to present your payslip once you go to the hospital or to a clinic to prove that you are paying national insurance in Malta, because especially if you have just moved here, they might not be able to find you on their system straight away. So take your payslip with you to show them that you are working in Malta. Public transport in Malta. So if you are coming to Malta as a tourist, buses are the cheapest and most useful of Malta's public transportation system. The most routes operate between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. There's also a night service which operates between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. on some selected routes. You can get the bus card, which is a contactless card designed to make it easier for you. Once you board the bus, you just beep the card next to the driver and proceed to your seat. As from October 2022, if you are living in Malta, so if you have a residence card, you are a resident in Malta, not a tourist, you will have access to free transport. So if you have the Tallinn card, the bus card, and you are a resident in Malta, you will use the public transport absolutely for free. So you can go to work, you can go out in the evening and use the buses absolutely for free, given that you are a resident in Malta, you are living in Malta. Cost of living in Malta, of course, just like any other country, unfortunately, the prices are going up. But however, despite this, most foreigners will still say that living here compared to other European countries and cities, it is still very reasonable to live here. But for us, of course, for Maltese people, we start comparing the prices to the ones in the past, and we can notice that everything is becoming a bit more expensive. But compared to other cities in Europe, and we, as EURES advisors, tend to travel a lot, we can say that it is still very reasonable to live in Malta. Rent prices are also rising. However, it is still possible to live cheaply here, as I have said before, if you keep away from the touristic areas. So prices for groceries also will depend on where you shop. If you go to the supermarket, it will be much cheaper to get your fruit and vegetables. EURES Malta can help. So if you have any queries, either related to this presentation or maybe there's something which I did not mention during this presentation, please get in touch with us. Our email address is eures.jobsplus@gov.mt. Our website, you can access the Public Employment Service website, which is jobsplus.gov.mt, and there's also the EURES Malta website. We are also active on social media, so just go to EURES Malta on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also message us on social media should you prefer rather than sending us an email. We are very active on social media as well, and we will get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you so much.